What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of JaAR. JaAR, for those of you that may be new, stands for Joe.
And Amy.
Review. It's our weekly show where we review the magic stories as they're posted on Wizard's website. And this week we are here to review Return to Dominaria-Episode 8, as always, by Martha Wells. And by as always, I mean for Dominaria, at least. My quick review up at the top of this one is a little tough. This story answers the question of where Chandra has been since the first story, where we see her bail, but not in the same way that Nissa did in Broken Bond in the first story Spotlight, but she left to try to get stronger, right? And now we've been apart from her for quite some time, and so this story helps to answer where she's been. And it spans over multiple days. I wouldn't think it's an exaggeration to say over a week of time with Chandra since she planeswalked away from the other members of the Gatewatch. And yet, it spanned such a long period of time, and I feel like at the end of the story, I could summarize the story in 2 sentences.
Yep.
And you would miss very little to nothing. I will say that there was a large payoff for old school fans who have been reading all the way through, right, or have been following the stories all the way through, from original Dominaria through Magic Origins to today. Big payoff for those fans. And if you are one of those fans, that's great, and I highly encourage you to read the story, because you're gonna have that, oh my god, mind blown moment at the end. But if you're not one of those fans, like if you started reading really anytime after Magic Origins, there will not be a bombshell for you in this story, despite the fact that that's how it ended. Was, oh my god, it's a bombshell! If you haven't been following along, God forbid you were a new reader within the last, 3 years, which I think is perfectly viable of an option for you to be. So, I don't know. I think for me, I would say it's complicated. I think that some people will really enjoy it and really have that, oh my god, what the hell just happened moment. And the other half of the people will be like, that was the end of the story? Why did it end like that? That's so weird. I mean, that's cool that that's what happened, but really, that was the end? You couldn't have done anything more and accomplished anything more in the story? Again, apologies for the quick, not so quick review and the non-committal answer of it's complicated, but that's what I have for you. Amy, can you make any more sense of this than I just did?
I think the story was not super important. I think that if you are an old Vorthos, that it's a story you need to read. But I don't think it is a bombshell. I don't think it's, as advertised.
Okay.
I think, they're like, you're gonna be so impressed, guys! And then they tell you, aren't you? Aren't you? Aren't you? Aren't you? Aren't you? And then you're just like, yeah, no, not really. So.
Yep. So, with that being said, take that as you will. What I will tell you is, because we've been doing this recently, in the description box underneath this video, whether you're on your phone and you need to scroll down, or whether you're on a computer and you need to scroll down, in the description box below is a link to this article, this story episode. If you are interested in reading it before hearing our stories, our review, since we don't, we review, we don't summarize. Why am I not able to remember our tagline? God, I'm bad at this. Anyway, if you we review, we don't summarize, and I say that for a reason, so that we're not here to say, and then this happened, and then this happened. We're going to touch on talking point-worthy points, and if we miss something, we don't want you to miss out by just being here. So if it's something where you're like, I need to know everything that happened, go read the story. And because I will never deny the amount of hard work that went into the story and the talent that went into any of these stories, because the content is different than the skill level involved, in my opinion. And so that's my plug, if you will, for clicking on that link in the description is go read the story if that's something you're interested in. If you are just like, just give me the Cliff Notes, 2 lines, to a degree we'll be talking about it. I'm not going to give you those 2 sentences, but you'll get it out of what we're saying. So, yeah, that's my advice to all of you. You do with that what you will, but it's always better in this show if we are able to have a discussion with people who have their own opinions after having read it, so that you can all talk to us in the comments or on Facebook or Twitter or whatever, and tell us what you guys think as well.
Yeah, and to me, that's why it's important that you read it ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you know, just going by what we said doesn't add to the conversation. You can't sit there and go, oh, okay, well, everything you just said in the comments and have it be a worthwhile response.
Yeah.
If you can spit out a different opinion or a thought that didn't occur to us, then that is a conversation we want to be able to have. And you won't be able to do that if all you do is listen to our review.
Mm-hmm. And so, on to the full review itself. Not that we haven't gone quite in depth already with the quick stuff at the beginning, which is fine. But on to the full review itself. We start this story with Chandra, obviously. I mean, this whole story was told from Chandra's perspective. We heard voices of other people, right? Dialogue from other characters, but this was all, you know, her from her perspective, following her around. And it starts with her as soon as she has left. I said the other members of the Gatewatch, right? But that was really just Liliana and Gideon, right? We're the only 2 members left after Nissa walked away, and Jace wasn't there. But, so, with that, she goes...
And Ajani wasn't there.
Right. And Teferi isn't a thing yet. And so, you have... he will be soon. You have Chandra going to Regatha. And the reason she goes to Regatha is because of something known as ether trails, which I don't think they've ever named them that before, but we have heard inklings of that in the past. Just the concept of a planeswalker being able to detect another planeswalker in the vicinity, or having just recently planeswalked, or something to that effect, that it's the trail of magic left behind by them, and that the other planeswalkers are able to read that. I mean, that's how, for example, at the end of Rivals of Ixalan, right, to use the most recent example, Jace planeswalks to Dominaria from Ixalan, and as he's doing it, he's like, oh, Gideon and Liliana are right there, I'll planeswalk to them. Well, how would he know that? So they don't say, I found their ether trail, but it seems to be the same kind of idea of like, oh, okay, I can sense that they're there, I'll go there. So it seems like planeswalkers kind of have this innate like compass, so to speak, and especially as long as they know generally who they're looking for, right? They can tell maybe law magic coming off of Gideon or necromancy coming off of Liliana with their planeswalking as well, because Chandra says, oh, there's a pyromancer nearby, maybe it's JaAR. And so she goes to Regatha to regain the pyromancer's goggles, which we saw back again in Magic Origins, which is why I mentioned it earlier. And that's really the last time that we got any meaningful discussion, in my opinion, on Regatha and Carol Keep, right, where Chandra used to be the abbot there. They talked about it very briefly in between then and now, but not to the extent that, as we will talk about later, that would warrant you enjoying the surprise reveal at the end. And so speaking of that, then Chandra gets the goggles, she sneaks up there, but is caught by Mother Luti, who is an elder of the keep, and she's like, oh, this is the worst person to have caught me. You know, anybody else, it wouldn't be as big of a deal, but it's Mother Luti, and that's a problem. And she tries to, like, Chandra, like, freaks out and is like, I wasn't doing anything, and then goes to planeswalk away before Mother Luti can really say anything meaningful. I don't know. Did you have any opinions on that portion of the story?
Yeah, I mean, maybe not.
Okay, fair enough.
It seemed rather pointless to be honest.
Yeah. Well, again, because...
I mean, it was setting up for the rest of the story. But even the rest of the story fell short to me.
Right. And we'll, like I said, we'll get to that, and we're not that far away from it, because what the heck else. I do want to comment, though, during that portion of the story, because it was somewhere else put in as well, but Chandra discusses what she just planeswalked away from. She talks about Nissa leaving, and Chandra mentions, or feels hurt by that. She's like, how could Nissa leave us? How could Nissa leave me? And she makes that a point, and sure, you could say Chandra is childish, and so it's got to be all about her, but I don't think that's it. I think that Chandra developed quite a kinship with Nissa on Kaladesh, and we saw that in the stories, in Locked Up or Locked Away, or whatever the name of the story was. It was very apparent that they became very close, and I'm not going to get into it here. If you guys really want me to talk about it in the future, I'd be happy to, but there are some people, the shippers out there, if you will, who would say that because of that one inappropriately uploaded magic story that somehow hinted that there might have been a romantic possibility relationship between the two, that's not canon, at least as far as I'm concerned. That was an incorrect story that was put up, and there are certain people who are upset by that, and that's fine, but again, I'm not going to get fully into that. If you're interested, feel free to look it up. I'm sure you can Google it and find discussions about it by people much more interested than me.
But the point is that in this story, it felt very randomly thrown in there, because they in no way described at all why she felt that way. She just said it multiple times, and it just felt awkward.
Right.
Like, okay, that's enough. Like, stop beating us over the head with this one sentence for some reason, instead of giving us a reason to believe you. Like, it really just kind of seemed like they were trying to convince us, like, please believe that Chandra really misses Nissa. And it's like, well, you're saying that, but why?
Right.
Why does she care? Why do we care?
Well, and I think, and one of the things that Chandra says is, she's like, I understand that Zendikar could be in trouble from Nicol Bolas. She's like, but Nissa didn't even give me a chance to come with her. Right? So Nissa just was like, I'm leaving, and before Chandra could say anything, I guess, to Chandra, it felt like Nissa was already gone. And then, to top it all off, then Chandra's feeling was that Gideon sided with Liliana, and Chandra was hurt by that, because in actuality and canonically, there was, and or is still, a romance brewing between Chandra and Gideon. And so, with that happening, Chandra may feel betrayed, because Gideon is now, had seemed to lean towards Liliana in terms of, no, we need to help her fight her demons so that she can have, free reign of her power to help us against Nicol Bolas, and Chandra was upset by that.
Yeah, but her response was to run off and just say, well, I need to get stronger to fight off Nicol Bolas, okay, bye. Instead of sitting there and mulling stuff over and having an actual deep emotional reaction to the things that just transpired.
Yeah, and I mean...
And maybe that is because they want to be like, well, she's red and impulsive and young and naive, so, when she gets mad about this stuff, she's just going to run off. But, like, realistically, what she would do is talk or think about why she's so mad about these things, and she would have vocalized, either in thought or actual dialogue, hey, like, why did Nissa just not even say that she was going? Why did she not want me to go with her? Why did she literally keep me from doing that?
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, no one's keeping her from doing that.
Mm-hmm.
She knows where she's going.
She said it, yeah.
If she really wants to go be with Nyssa, she could just do that whenever she wants. She's a planeswalker.
Yep.
So, you know.
Well, and
again, I feel like I'm not being convinced of the characterization. I'm just being spoon-fed things that we're supposed to believe, and I can't believe them because you're not giving me a reason to.
Well, I'll give you a slight counterpoint, but also agreeing with you as well. I thought from this story that the reason this story tried to, I guess, help, and this is what I thought of, that when Chandra was like, I gotta go get stronger, and Plains walked away, what I thought was she had felt the ether trails of Jaya in that moment and was just like, I gotta go get stronger, which in Chandra speak meant I gotta go find Jaya Ballard, and then pieced out because of it. But if that's the case, talk to your teammates. They're right there.
Right.
Why not? So again, that's why I said counterpoint, but also to your point.
Especially
so if she's
when
going to vocalize it. Say, I know of a super powerful planeswalker, and I think I might feel her right now. She might be able to help me. Do you guys want to come with me? Maybe I should go off on my own. Like, discuss it,
Or
maybe.
at least say, hey, this is where I intend to go. This is who I am looking for. Because since we're all scattering, you might want to know what's going on with me so that you don't just randomly think I'm dead, maybe.
Yep.
Like we do with Jace, because, you know, unintentionally he wound up on the wrong plane and couldn't leave. So, you know, not to say that that would happen to Chandra, but, you know, cell phones aren't a thing in this universe. So
Right.
she can't just, you know, text you and say, you know, where are you at? Or, hey, you know,
Jesus.
I'm over here on Regatha, you know.
Right. And then the fact that then she, you know, went to Regatha, grabbed the goggles, and then came back. So she's back on Dominaria. She was probably back hours later, not even.
Yeah.
So she could have been there throughout any of the stuff that they've been dealing with, and who knows?
And yet she has no clue, probably.
Right.
The fact that Gideon almost died.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know.
And then Liliana healed him,
Yeah.
of all people.
Yeah. And
Liliana
murdered
the
her brother
necromancer,
and
yeah.
whatever else.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, there are a lot of things. And I mean, again, even if you were to say, like, oh, you need help. Because the other thing is, at this point, Liliana and Gideon said, we need to go find other people to help us. You know who would be super helpful? How about a really old, really powerful pyromancer? That would possibly be helpful. I mean, I get that it's against a demon, and so if they are inherently strong against fire, but still, like, that's another person. And as we found out in this story, an old planeswalker on her home plane or her main plane has some friends too. So, you know, like you said, it seems foolish that is the way that they went with it. And again, I don't think she's red, impulsive, and childish can explain all of that nonsense away.
Yes.
Because that's a lot to explain away.
Yeah.
I agree. So.
Yeah. It's a lot of just poor characterization. I'll say that again.
Mm-hmm.
Where instead of actually flushing out what needs to be flushed out from an emotional perspective for these characters, we're just being told the actions that they're doing and sometimes being told why and sometimes just not.
Mm-hmm.
It's ugh. I don't want to say what I'm about to say, but I'm gonna say it. It's poor writing.
Mm. Well, okay, but we talked about this. Do you think... that's interesting. I'm curious whether you think that it's poor skill level, or is it just poor... you mentioned characterization, which just seems to mean that there's not continuity. And continuity errors, I don't think equals poor talent. You know what I mean?
No, I'm talking about the talent.
Okay.
Because I don't think of it as being continuity. poor characterization to me is an inability to make the characters feel like real people.
Okay.
Okay. Continuity is just the underlying thing that connects all of those feelings and thoughts that are occurring among the characters.
Right. I mean,
so it's the common thread that make sense.
Okay. So yeah, I was going to even say I would think that continuity would mean making the characters feel like themselves as we've seen them previously, or at least, that who they would be.
Or that their part makes sense in the story overall.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, I'm thinking of it purely from a characterization standpoint of, instead of I'll use what you commonly say, instead of being shown what these characters' motivations are and everything else, we're being told in a very simple sentence multiple times.
Okay.
Because instead of them showing that Chandra really wants to get stronger, they're just telling us that multiple times. Or instead of showing that Chandra actually misses Nissa, they're just telling us that 3 times. I'm pretty sure it was 3 times in the story they said, well, gee, Chandra really misses Nissa. Okay, why? Why do I care? Give me a reason to care. What is the purpose? What's the reason behind? And I understand if they don't want to give something away and they're just saying, hey, this is an important thing for you to know because come next story, you'll find out why. But then you say it 1 time, maybe 2. But when it gets to 3, it's just repetitive nonsense. That's all it is.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, and there's also the concept of suspending disbelief. And if you can't do that, then that goes to your point of making the character a believable, or that they could be a person.
Right.
Right. And then if you can't suspend your disbelief because it's so outlandish that why wouldn't she just say words to the people standing right in front of her that are supposed to be her companions? Even if she felt somewhat betrayed by Gideon, she even says, I'm going to go get stronger. I'm not leaving like Nissa just did, but I'll be back. I'm not quitting like she just did. So Chandra still had enough to her to be able to say, I don't hate you guys. I just have to go.
Don't worry.
Yeah. Okay.
But she said that as if to say, don't worry. But then she didn't say, here's my plan. Here's where I'll be. Mm-hmm. So don't worry about me because now you know where I'm going to be. If a teenager goes to their parent, right, and says, don't worry about me, I'll be fine, and then walks out the door, their parent's going to go, wait a minute, why don't you tell me who you're hanging out with tonight and where you'll be? In case something goes wrong, now I know now I know what to do.
Mm-hmm. Or if you're not back when we expect you to be back, we know where to go looking for you or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Or, if God forbid, you get injured or something like that, there's actually a chance that we'll find out or be able to tell the police where you are or something like that. And obviously it's not a perfect relation to the real world, right? They're not going to find the police and have the police go looking for Chandra, but you understand where I'm coming from with this.
Yeah, but I mean, Chandra has never had a penchant for getting injured ever. I've never heard that before once.
No.
Not even once. Like literally twice or 3 times in the last 2 sets or blocks. Anyway, so, okay.
And none of the other people in this scenario have gotten injured at all.
Not even a little bit. Not even a little bit.
No.
Nope.
No.
So, going back to the story itself, that you have, there was another callback to old school Dominaria lovers and people who are aware of the older cards and etc. Because we had discussions of the Kobolds of Carekeep and Prosh. I'm aware of current Dominaria, the set. I didn't see any Kobolds. I didn't see Prosh. That's all old stuff. Which is fine, because we're on Dominaria, so that makes perfect sense. But again, as I will continue to argue, in a story that seemed to solely cater to old school fans, where, don't get me wrong, right? I know the Kobolds of Carekeep. I don't have to look that up. I know Prosh, right? I'm aware of those cards. I'm pretty sure I have some of them still. But, so, don't take this as old school Vorthos hating. That is not what it is. But understand that the whole point of these stories now, if you're doing two things, then do both. If you're catering to old school fans but also wanting to make newer fans feel welcomed and like they're understanding what's going on, then don't use nothing but in-jokes.
Right.
If you put an in-joke or two peppered into a story where things are being described and people can understand it, that makes perfect sense. But if all you're doing is one big in-joke so that the people who are in on that joke can go on forums and things like that, awesome. And when I'm looking at cards, right, every saga that I look at that was printed in Dominaria, as I'm looking at those sagas, I don't mind if I have to go read an article or watch a video that's 20 minutes long, a half hour long, to understand the entirety of what is encompassed by that one saga, right? Or that one legendary sorcery, because that's what the card has tempted me to do, right? That card, to learn about that information, I have to go deep on it. And it depends on how deep you want to go as a fan, as a viewer, whatever. I'm sure
for me it's got to be easy enough.
That's fine.
I'm not willing.
That's totally fine. And if you want, I'm sure there are Cliff Notes versions out there, right? I'm not going to tell you, go to this site for this or this site for this. I'm not, because that's up to you. Feel free to go do that research yourself and find what works for you. And if you want, do the appropriate thing. It's 2018, right? We've heard about this discussion, and I'm not going to get fully into it, but check your sources maybe. So when you go read something, make sure that what you're reading is what is correct, because you don't. It's for your own protection, right? You don't want to walk up to a group of people and start talking about, oh, the Kobolds of Carekeep were there, and Prosh is their deity, and this and that. Like, what if you're wrong?
Yeah.
Check your sources.
Like, we don't sit here in this review show and say everything that we're talking about is fact, because it's not. It's our opinion, and it's a review show. And we make sure that we say that instead of making you think that our thoughts and theories are canon, because they're not.
Well, and the other thing is, if I do pass something off as fact, for example, I said I didn't see any kobolds in Dominaria. If there's like one or two kobold cards that I missed, like red commons or something, feel free to correct me.
Leave it in the comments.
But honestly, I'm always cool with that, right? I'm not sitting here saying everything I say is true. You will not tell me I'm wrong. Like, I've done it before, right? If I say something incorrectly, I apologize. And then the next time, if I feel like it's warranted of like, I slipped up, I said this, I was wrong, thank you to the people who corrected me, and here's what the correct thing is, right?
Well, and that's the point of doing a review show and wanting the audience to comment back. It's a conversation. If we say the wrong thing, you can weigh in. Or you can weigh in even if we don't say the wrong thing, you know? And many people can give many different opinions, and none of them are any less right than anyone else's.
So, in terms of newer characters as well, we met one today, and that's Baird. Baird is the uncommon legend that has the ghostly prison ability, where if your opponent is attacking you with a creature, they can only do so by tapping one for each creature that's attacking you. We saw him for like a sentence. He told Chandra about the soldiers, the Argivian, I say Argivian, if I'm mispronouncing it, I apologize, but to follow the Argivian troop, and that they were with a super powerful pyromancer, and so it was, she's going to go look and see, oh, is it JaAR, and follows after them. And that's where the remainder of the story happens, but it felt very weird. He didn't really do much. He was just, hi, I am a sign in the ground with information for you, right? It's the same idea of like an NPC in a video game. You walk up, you press the A button, and they say, the troop went that way, and they were with a pyromancer that you might be looking for.
And that's what I felt like this entire story was. Just sentences of narration that could not be changed by circumstances or emotions. They just were. So let's get to the bigger stuff then, because I think that these points have been made, and we want to hear your opinion. If you disagree with us, please, right? We're not getting into a fight. We would love to hear your opinions. Yes.
And let us know. Like, guys, you're really wrong here.
Please write something to prove us wrong, because I don't want to feel this way about this story.
Yeah. But if you agree with us, let us know that too, so that we know that we're not crazy, right? That's always cool and helpful and nice. But so we get to Chandra getting into the Yavimaya woods. And we find out she walks in and there's automatons there. And they're digging. And then she sees them digging, and she's like, notices that they're digging, and then sees the trees kind of moving inwards toward the automatons, really. And they start attacking the automatons, and then one of them starts attacking Chandra. Now, Chandra is wary at first, because she's like, I don't want to fight any of them that might be friends with JaAR, but one of the trees starts attacking her, and so she's like, I have to defend myself, and one of the automatons comes over and is like, look, like explains to her, this is what's going on, and they're attacking anything that moves, so just,
right.
And then she destroys them, right? Or at least helps destroy them. And we come to find out that this talking automaton that she said was smaller than the rest, humanoid form, I suspected it for a second, but then I actually got thrown off, because the last time we saw automatons, and I thought that they were Karn-based automatons, they were with Urza. But this time, they were not only with Karn, they were with Karn. Karn was legit there. He was the smaller one. He introduces himself to Chandra, and there you go. There's your Karn moment. Did he do much? No. Is there more to come? There damn well better be.
Yeah.
Because, wow. And again, I'll talk about the questions that were raised, but then Chandra says, I'm looking for someone who's here to meet an old friend who's been gone for a very long time. And he's like, well, I'm an old friend that's been gone for a very long time. And then she turns around, and then here is your bombshell moment, right? And again, it's arguable whether it's a bombshell moment for you or not. Mother Luti, who, depending on who you are and what stories you've read, this is, I would say, even likely. If you're watching this show, maybe not, because if you're going super deep on it, I don't know. I don't know what the demographics are in terms of knowledge of our viewers. But it would not surprise me if a good portion of the people who read this story, if this story was the first time they had ever heard of Mother Luti before. And for people who are so entrenched in the lore, and that's why I talked about old school Vorthos who have been following all the way through, people who are so entrenched in the lore may not realize that. They may have walked away from the story being like, oh my god, this is amazing. Mother Luti is JaAR. We know it. Chandra's talking to JaAR now and she knows it. That's amazing. Mm-hmm. And while that is really sweet, if you can look at it from my perspective, our perspective for a second, realize that newer readers have no idea what just happened. Mm-hmm. And that's how the story ended. That's Mother Luti's JaAR the whole time?
That's really how the entire story was. Because the whole story, the only reason why we even saw Chandra was, even though the whole thing was done from her perspective and it was supposed to be like her story, here's what was happening to her, it really just, the whole point of it was really just to set up for JaAR and Karn. Mm-hmm. and it was just kind of tacked on the end, and the whole time it was like, okay, Chandra's doing these things, but I don't care. What happened to Chandra after she left the Gatewatch group was kind of irrelevant. And this story proved that. Yes, we were able to meet Jaya and Karn as a result of following Chandra, but that's literally all it was.
And then it ended.
Right.
Without...
Abruptly.
Right, with barely anything that happened. So, here's the two takeaways.
It was like rising action, and then just the tip of the climax, and that was it.
And again, that may very well mean that next week we continue with it, and we get more that, at that point, we might just say should have been tacked onto this one so that something could have happened, but
so it
I don't
could
know.
have been an actual full story.
And we'll see.
In the format that stories are written.
Next week we could very well be back to the Weatherlight and not be focused on this thread anymore, because then the next thing we know, the three of them, Chandra, Jaya, and Karn, just show up at the Weatherlight, and that's how they get back together. I don't know. I have obviously no idea. We will have to see in next week, week 9, or episode 9. But I'm not done yet. Two things. First of all, I wrote this down in my notes, and I wanted to come back to it quickly because we had such a big discussion about characterization before. I do want to give props in one instance, and I want to know your opinion as well on this, but I felt like there was still a Chandra-esque moment when she was going through Carol Keep and then eventually met with Mother Luti, because as she's going through, she's like talking to herself, right? Which she does a lot. She gets in her own head and she's talking to herself, and she's like, I don't want to have to explain to people what I'm doing. Like, it's not a huge deal if people see me here, but I don't want to tell people why I'm here because that'll take too much time. And oh man, especially Mother Luti, now that she's here, I don't want to tell her everything. And then she immediately tells Mother Luti everything. And it seems like it's very rambly, because she's like, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to take these goggles, and I'm going to go find Jaya, and I'm going to give her the goggles to Jaya, and she can help me, and she can... And Mother Luti's like, Chandra, just wait a minute. And Chandra's like, but then I can't do this, and I got to do this, and I got to... And Mother Luti's like, okay, but Chandra, listen. And then Chandra's like, okay, I got to go. And she leaves. That seemed very Chandra to me, right? So in terms of characterization, I think that was a character win.
Okay.
That's why I was curious what you think. That doesn't nullify what happened later on in the story, but again, it just so that we're not sitting here like it was terrible, they don't know who Chandra is, like, no, there was something there. And I liked that part. I thought it was funny. There was that light moment in there, and there really weren't many moments of this story that had been comedic leading up to it.
I didn't think that was funny.
I think you have to go in depth. I don't think in that exact moment in the story it was, but I think if you look back on it, I thought it was funny, giving it a second thought. Not like originally reading it, right? I didn't read it and chuckle, as I've done with like Liliana and Gideon's dialogue recently or something like that, right? Where Liliana will say something in response to Gideon and it's like, wow, that's really funny, and like laugh to that. But I don't know.
See, I didn't think that was funny at all, and maybe that's because I thought of it from Jaya's perspective a little bit more.
Okay.
And so when that all happened, all I basically thought was what a shame it was that she didn't stick around to listen to what Jaya had to say. I mean, because that would have been a good moment for her to have said, hey, I'm your mentor, but I'm also your other mentor. Weirdly. And had she been able to create that moment, that could have been a real characterization moment.
Okay.
And it didn't get to be, I think, because of what you're saying is the only characterization moment. Mm-hmm. So.
Mm-hmm. That's fair. And then to move away from that entirely, and kind of to move away from Chandra really for this portion, I was left with a question. And I was surprised by that because, as we said, we didn't really feel like a lot happened in the story, right? At the end, you could say, like, Chandra gave JaAR her goggles back and met Karn and JaAR, right? Like, what else? What else was there, really, right? We found out where she was, and that was about it. But I will say that I want to know, and it's really more because of the cards themselves and people's analysis of some of the cards. There are a couple of cards in this set, one of which the art was depicted in here. I'm not going to remember the name of it, but Chandra standing in front of the tree and the automaton, kind of deciding which one to choose. Fiery intervention, I believe, something like that, where she has to choose like which one she's going to attack, who she's going to help, and that means that Multani and the Yavimaya Forest are fighting Karn and his automatons. Why? Why are they fighting? Right? Karn made it a point of being like, they attack anything that moves, but your automatons were digging in the ground of this forest.
Yeah.
Why? What are you doing here? Right? Who knows? Is he doing what Teferi was doing and looking for another of Urz's hidden treasures or whatever? You know, another old item like, you know, Mishra constructs or Phyrexian items or whatever, the Mirari, something like that. There's a lot of different things that it could be that Karn is looking for with his automatons. And I'm hoping, I mean, at this point, it's pretty obvious to me that they'll be hopefully telling us soon enough. But we've got 4 stories left. 4. We've only seen half of the story spotlights, so we still have 2 more to go, which is pretty important. We haven't seen Belzenlocke at all, let alone the fight with Belzenlocke, and we've now just introduced 2 new characters to the story. Well, new, but again,
right.
2 characters that we have not seen yet in this set of Dominaria stories that are pretty important. They are literally 2/3 of the Planeswalker cards in the set.
Right.
Are Karn and JaAR, and they were just revealed in episode 8. So,
in a poor fashion.
Well, and hopefully next week continues this thread. If it doesn't, it clearly will continue, but I'm assuming it'll be next week. We shall see. On that one, any other? I think we said our piece.
I think we beat this one to death.
That's fair. But I do want to say, we talked about the cards, and I was saying that the cards were what led me to ask these questions about why are Karn and Multani fighting, right? What's going on here? Well, some of those questions get asked when I open product, because I actually just recently started opening a booster box, and I'm splitting it into 3 parts, and there's a reason for it. I'm doing it as of Orthos. So I'm doing it by discussing the art and the things hidden in the art and the story behind it and the history behind the cards, because this is Dominaria. Right? I'm not necessarily going to do that with every set because, to be fair, the other sets don't go as deep lore-wise, and that's fine. Because if they all did, my brain would probably explode.
Yeah.
Because, to be honest, and again, I don't pretend to be the end-all be-all of this stuff. I'm sure that I'm missing large portions of some of these cards in terms of history, story, little hints in the art to callbacks and things like that from past Dominaria sets, things in the flavor text that discuss things. I'm sure I'm missing a lot of that stuff, but I'm trying to give as much as I can, as much as I'm aware of. And so my recommendation would be, if you know all this stuff already, maybe that video is not for you, but maybe it's for a friend of yours who loves to play Magic but isn't fully invested in the story. Well, that might be a nice transition point for them of, hey, watch this video. This guy opens the cards, he talks about them. Sometimes I talk about the playability of them. Sometimes I talk about the storyline beats behind them and the flavor and the lore that goes into these cards. All of which, and I'll do this now, all of which is me showing off my...
Hashtag Vorthos Pride.
There you go. Sorry, I sprung it on you. Because I was busy plugging. That video will be up at the end, right? If you're interested in that, like I said, sharing that with other people, watching it yourself, I would really appreciate it. It helps us out, right? As does you clicking the subscribe button that appears over here. That would help us too. If you're interested in finding out when all of these JaAR episodes come out, as well as our openings, I think I'm actually going to be spacing out the booster boxes or the 3 parts of the booster box. I'll do like part 1, then a palate cleanser, then part 2, another palate cleanser, and then part 3, so that we can have this go for a long period of time, so we can learn more about the story, first of all, so that if there's more story aspects, we can continue talking about them, but also because it's kind of a lot, and I don't want to be putting, half-hour videos up every Monday. Maybe we can do a shorter pre-release pack opening, because I have a problem when it comes to pre-release packs. Hi, I'm Joe, and I have a problem. I open too many pre-release packs, and I'm going to be doing lots more, so don't you worry about that. But I, for now, want to thank you guys so much for watching this episode of JaAR here on Geek for All. I hope you enjoyed it. As always, leave your opinions, your comments, your thoughts, your questions, your concerns down in the comment section below.
Yes.
I've been Joe.
And I'm Amy.
And as we always say, guys, in whichever video of ours you watch next, we will see you all next time. Thanks, everybody.